Hey guys, welcome back to the Probate House Guy Podcast. I'm Brad Woodall, the Probate House Guy, and today I am here with my buddy Mike Flora from sunny Southern California. Mike is been a friend of mine for years. We know each other through the Investor Fuel Mastermind. And Mike, you're a former Marine and a firefighter, and now you're a real estate investor. So tell me a little bit about you. You can expand on that a little bit further and what your business does and how you guys operate.
Yeah. So me and John Monday, he's a co-owner. We were both Marines for 4 years. We were both paramedic firefighters for about 16 years. And then, we were doing this on the side. We kind of watched some Sean Terry stuff and we're like, hey, let's try this wholesaling thing too. We have time. And, California's so expensive. We just looked at it as a side hobby, and then we just kept at it. And then it kind of just took off from there. And then we wound up resigning from the fire department down here in Southern California, coming up on 2 years in June, and just been focusing on this ever since. But things turned out really well, while we were in there. And then obviously we just had no time and we couldn't really focus and make it a real business on that. So, that's we left and we're doing well now. Now we're enjoying the freedom. We kind of went from the most structured thing to the most freedom thing you could have, being an entrepreneur and being your own boss and creating your own effects.
Who's there done that?
Yeah, right. And that was a little bit harder of a transition than I thought it was going to be, being a little bit more responsible for myself in that aspect. But things are turning out great. Like we're doing really well. We got our first hire on board about 5 months ago. We're looking to get somebody else on board here soon, but we're rolling. That's kind of our story right now. So,
man, cool. Yeah, I ran into the same thing. I left my corporate job in 2018, and there was a point where the business was like getting in the way, or my job was getting in the way of the business, I should say. And at some point, you're like, you know what? I just got to focus on this. And then you're right. You get out there and you have all this freedom in the world, and you've got to create structure in your life again. That's why I went and got an office, so I could still go to the office, and then I don't play around the house and do things I really shouldn't be doing.
Totally. And then you got the wife and kids around the house and you try and get stuff. I'm like, we got to have an off. You realize how much more you got to put in and really dial yourself in to be productive and keep that needle moving forward at all times on your business. But we were doing 72 hours a week plus sometimes at the firehouse, and then doing all the real estate stuff on our own. Once we were out of the firehouse, and sometimes you wouldn't get any sleep, and it was just something's got to give here. We got to make a decision.
Right. It always seems like every firefighter has a side hustle. I used to own a landscaping business, and I knew so many guys in the landscaping that were firefighters and landscapers. They had both kind of gigs, It seems like that's really common.
Yeah, there's a lot of real estate agent firefighters that I know of too. Everyone's got a little side gig. It's a great job. I miss the guys, but my freedom and the family, it's so much better.
For sure. That's why we do this business, right? It's a freedom. I was telling somebody that the other day. It's I don't do this for the money. I mean, the money's cool, but I do it for the freedom to not have to ask for time off, to be able to do what I want to do. If I want to take the day off and go do something, I can take the day off. And I mean, what I went through over the last year and a half with my son's stuff, the freedom that this business gave me to be able to take him to the doctor's appointments and the chemo treatments and all the stuff that was just many days a week. I had the flexibility to do that versus my wife works a corporate job. She loves her job. She loves what she does. She doesn't want to quit, but she doesn't have that flexibility that I have. So having that flexibility is worth so much for sure.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I've been there before where I'm I don't even care if I lose money the next 2 months. I still have my freedom to do whatever the heck I want to do. It's really awesome coming from Marine Corps and fire department where it's you're going to show up, you have to work to you don't even have a choice anymore. I'm man, it's so nice. And I'm well, I'm going to my daughter's softball game today and I'm going to be there for Christmas and New Year's or whatever the case is, where I wouldn't even have that luxury at the firehouse or obviously the Marines too. So yeah, super pumped. We're here doing all this, but yeah.
So I hear you talking a lot about rentals that you guys own in California, and everyone's California's a terrible market for rentals, especially Southern California. Why don't you tell me a little bit about how you guys do your rentals. It's a little bit different and unique, and why it works for you.
Yeah, it's different for. I learned it's really different for everyone all over the country. So I mean, obviously California, I believe, is like one of the worst or the worst of how much the property's worth and what you get in rents. It's not very good. Really, how we kind of broke it down, how we play it is one, we target 100% free and clear properties, and then I try to get those sellers to carry paper. A lot of them are old, tired landlords, and they're not like really, really motivated because they got a free and clear, but they're really tired. So I can offer more with terms, and then we cost seg that out. And then I look for quick pay downs on those properties, so I can refi later and pull a chunk out and let those rents and let the market do its thing with that. And then some of the other ones, when rates were low too, we haven't picked up a ton of rentals lately, but we're just trying to get into it with as little money as possible because we know the cash flow is just really probably not going to be there. So if it's something that's a light fixer and, we're getting it for 30% off or whatnot, I know I can get it and just do a rate and term refi and then just do as little, 100% of that purchase is already financed. So I'm getting as little out of pocket as possible where, some of these ones we're picking up for 8-9K out of pocket. I'm capturing 100%, 100K in equity or more just because price points. And this is just California, obviously. So I'm not even caring if I break even. I'll cost seg that to offset my short-term capital gains of, $500,000 on a purchase. We'll cost seg it and let the market do its thing here in California because, you get a $500,000 house, you're looking 3 to 5% growth per year. Every 7 years, do a cash out refi, you can pull maybe 20% of that, which is a big chunk.
Yeah.
I'm not looking at, I already know that cash flow is not going to be there. Like you're getting 50 cents on the dollar and it's rent ready. Like that's just, I mean, I'm sure there possibly are people, but if you do want to start getting a good quantity of them, really hard to do that. So we just look at it like how much is coming out of our pocket to acquire this and put long-term financing in place, or I'm getting sellers to carry paper. Having a little out of pocket there. You're picking up, you're getting over 100K of equity capture and it's costing 9,000 and I got a tenant in place where we're breaking even, and it's only costing me 9K. If at a I'll do it all day. Like, even if I'm in the hole $100, it's not the end of the world when you're looking at the big picture, but just a different play. A lot of guys where they're getting crazy good cash flow, but in 10 years, I might have gotten $350,000 in equity, and I can pull 120 out tax free on that. And you look at the cash flow they have, I still might. I don't get anything I can eat, but later on I get to eat a lot in a sense. It kind of it's a longer term play in my opinion with some of that for California SFRs. Yeah.
And the cost seg thing you mentioned, on a $500,000 property, that could be up to $100,000 back. And if you're a real estate professional, you can use that to offset your flipping income, and you get like a refund check from the IRS at the end of the year, and you could still use that to offset your, cash flow negative balance anyways. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We've already, talked to our tax guys. So you pick it up, you break even, but you cost seg that out. You're saving quite a bit of money. You're not giving to the government anyways to start. And then you just kind of let that market do its thing. And obviously there's risk with every tenant, but just when you're looking at numbers, it's completely separate. You could be in any market and have a crappy tenant. It doesn't matter. You're just looking at how...
I've had them. I've had great tenants and I've had some bad tenants. Like you get them sometimes and it sucks. And, it seems like it's crazy because like a bad one will just like ruin your day. And you just, you like forget about all the awesomeness, and that one bad tenant just, it's like, just screw that. I'm just dumping this property because this tenant sucks. And that would get kills, right?
Totally.
So, well, cool, man. So let's talk about, this is a Probate House Guy podcast, right? So you do some probate stuff, and it's a little different ball game out in California. So why don't you tell us about kind of maybe a deal or two you've done and kind of how that sort of works out in California?
Yeah, so probate here is a little different. Like there's some ways around it. Learned we did a couple deals, but it takes about 9 months or maybe even longer sometimes here in California. You're talking $9,000 on an average just to get through it. So, if you get a call, like we'll get calls and they're like, hey, we have a will, we got to do probate. It's kind of like, okay, well, sometimes we'll give upfront money that might work. But the same time, it's like we're not going to go through that whole process because they're going to alert, they got to put the publication out, and then all the other investors are going to come run in. And then you still got 6-7 months. So a lot of these guys pay a lot more than what we will as smaller time investors, and we're pretty conservative. So for us, we don't do a lot of that. But there's ways around where, we find some people where, the appraisal is done on date of death. So right. Here in Cali, if it's under 180, which is still very low, we can still get it done and where it's only like a couple months and we can be done with it. And then sometimes you can target when you're getting close to the end of that probate time, you can target those people. We don't really do that. We just already know that we get beat out majority of the time by other bigger companies or guys just willing to pay more in some of those areas or whatnot. Some of the price points are just so high. But there's also like Hegstad petitions I've come across. It's another thing where like it was in a trust, but they didn't record that, and then you can take that to the judge. And there's little ways you can get through that where you're not going through that full probate process. And we've done that and closed some really nice deals. But they're few and far between. I mean, it's like, oh, well, I have an old trust and I'm in it and the property should have been in it. They just didn't record it, right? Now I'm like, well, let's see what we can do with that. And then you get it around the probate process. And then date of death, we've done one where, they died 20 years ago. We're like, well, the appraisal is going to come in below that number of 180 now, compared to where it was then. But little tricks like that, but really all the way around, it's just tough to start and be like, oh, I'm going to front this money for 9 months, 9,000, if everything goes well, right? Yeah.
So someone has swerved the deal out from under you, which happened to us before. And you've got to
go ahead, Brett.
I was going to say, you got to understand that risk, Yeah.
Yeah. No, 100%. And also, and then it's like, what if a family member comes around in 9 months too? Then, fork up another 7. Now you're at almost 20K and you don't even have a binding contract because, they have to get those court documents before they are even legally able to have a legal binding purchase agreement with you. So
yeah, that makes a good point. And let's roll into kind of what the main topic I want to talk about this is understanding who the real decision maker is, because like you said, another family member can come along, and even though you might have been dealing with one person, they might not be the only decision maker in the family, or they're that pain in the butt family member that's on title and they're not cooperating. Like I was just on the phone right before we got on this with my leads manager, and we've been chasing this deal for, I think almost a year now. It's a house down in Florida. And the lady is on title that we've been dealing with, and then her ex-husband was on title with her, and they've got divorced a long time ago, but never took him off title. And then he died, and then now his daughter is being a pain in the butt, said she's going to cooperate with us. We've sent her a contract probably 15 times to sign, and she doesn't sign it. Now we're going to have to threaten legal action because she's had nothing to do with this property ever, and now she's thrown a wrench in the mix. So why don't you roll into talking about, this is important in sales training, right? You and I have gone through the same sales training stuff. You got to know who the real decision maker is. So tell me about some deals that you've done and let's expound on that.
Yeah. So I just had one the other day, but I used to get fooled at first. Sometimes you'll be talking to someone and be like, yeah, well, let's do that. And there's other family members or whatever. So they're always splitting it. And then you realize you're not even talking to that real executor of the trust or of the will, or you're talking to, the sister of, and they're, I'm just helping out and going through all this with everyone to see what we got. And, it's just countless times, you really want to get who the decision maker is and anybody else involved on one big call, a conference call or whatever the case may be. That's really the goal of that. Because even just the other day, I talked to one guy and he's telling me, and I've already been through it, I know. And he's like, yeah, we can do 405, like you said, that'll work for us. We're good on that. Let me get you over to Mercedes, what's her name? She's the executor. And then I'm just like, okay, well, let's just see what she has to say first. I've never spoke to her. She got back to me. He calls back. He's like, we got another offer, 437, et cetera, et cetera. And you're just, you could waste a lot of time and effort and thinking you got something and you got nothing still. So one thing is right when that happens, it's like, you need to know who the decision maker is, and get a group call with everyone. If you're splitting it 7 ways, like this guy said, it's like, well, let's get as many people as we can. And clearly you want that executor of that trust or the real decision maker of that, or get a scheduled meeting when you're going to meet the whole family out there and you can do your walkthrough and have that decision maker. But I used to get really full. I spent like 2 weeks on a couple people, and I'm just not even talking to the real person. This other person's stringing me along. Oh, I like you so much. We really want to do it with you. And then the other decision maker was talking to another investor. And then I got a call like, oh yeah, they just sold it to somebody else. And it's just a waste of time, but live and learn in this business as you go.
And sometimes the legal decision maker isn't actually the decision maker. You might have like somebody who's on title and they're the ones who technically can sign, but maybe, especially in family situations, for instance, like you talk about, you guys do a lot of deals with older people. Well, older people, their kids are sometimes sort of in charge because they're older and they don't want their parents to make bad decisions. We always like to involve the kids in the deal, even if the kid's not on title, if they're an older person, because the last thing I want is to get sued by some family for, elder abuse. So you got to make sure like who you really need to talk to.
Sure. 100%. And even if I'm talking to the decision maker, like we just mentioned with the older people, it's like, have you spoken to your children and your other family members? Like, have you spoken to your husband? Like, everyone, bring up, be transparent. We always think like, oh, we don't want to really saying anything to anybody else or whatever. But the more transparent you can be with that, they just put more trust in you. I mean, they pretty much might have that final say, which they do. They're the decision maker. If they really wanted to sign it off, they can tell everyone, go away. But with elderly especially, I always make sure that they've had a conversation with their children. You don't want those children coming after you and then the elderly abuse. We didn't look at once before. Obviously, we did nothing wrong. But someone had someone give us a call and ask us a few questions for possible elderly abuse. And rightfully so. You never know. Like, you're talking to someone on the phone. You don't know if they might have halfway dementia. They're just having a good day or whatever the case may be. But I always try and get a hold of family members or talk to them. And I tell them, hey, have your kids call me or whoever else call me. I want to talk to everyone and let them know exactly what's going on here with that. But yeah, a lot of people are just afraid to do that. I used to be a little bit afraid to do that too. Like, oh, it's going to ruin the whole thing. Or they don't want to do it either. But you just got to be transparent, lay it all out for everybody. And they're choosing you for a reason. And it's not always just about price. They want to trust you. So
yeah,
that's what
you've got to also make sure that when you're, talking to them, because ultimately it's either going to rear its head later or it's going to rear its head now. And you need to deal with it ASAP. So you really need to, like, we just ask, like, is there anybody else that you need to talk to about this or that we should be talking to before, you sign a contract with us? Because, we're going to send you the agreement right now. Is there anybody else that we need to talk to? And really, when there's parents involved, we say, hey, let me talk to your son or your daughter or whatever. Because many times it's like, it almost seems like the son or the daughter's, checking in on them every day or whatever. And, you just want to make sure that you're not doing things that might blow up in your face later, for sure.
And at times I would think, when we all think, oh, well, I'm talking to this person and let's not even bring the family in. But sometimes I brought the family in or I've mentioned it and then like the son or call, and then I'll pull out even more better information of their needs of like, I'm like, well, why don't we close early and you guys have money to help her move with that? And we can do, and then they're just ecstatic about that. And, I was talking to mom, because, the husband passed, mom calls and she's the seller. And then I talk to the kids and then I provide even more value that mom didn't even really think about, or if I mention it, then the kids are like, no, she needs the help. She won't tell you. And then, you get into that and now you're even more locked in and you're providing more value for sure that way. So sometimes it works in your favor even more when we do that. But yeah, getting fooled by multiple sellers and you're talking to the brother because you don't even know if the brother or the sister are even getting along. And he's like, yeah, we'll take that. And you're like, you haven't even talked to the person that's the executor or whatnot. But that can be frustrating at times. But don't be fooled by that. I'm sure you've been through that too, Brad. You're just like, well, I just wasted a lot of time talking
Oh,
to some
for sure.
no fool. So yeah,
We talked to a guy like last year, and him and his sister had been fighting in court for like years. Eventually, the probate court got so fed up with them because she had hired counsel, he had hired counsel. They were fighting over who was going to be the executor, da 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 da. And then finally, the probate judge, I mean, this case was in court, I think it was 4 years before the judge finally said, I'm putting both of you on title as tenants in common, 50-50. You guys figure it out. And he had them quit claim the title from the estate to the brother and the sister individually and said, all right, you guys fight it out in civil court now. The probate court is done with this, is essentially what it did. And then for 2 more years, they fought back and forth, fighting. And the guy was living in the house. The brother, he had been taking care of mom. His wife had quit her job. She moved into the house. And, he had been maintaining the house. And the sister didn't even live here in Georgia. Mm-hmm. And then she got some harebrained idea that she's going to flip the house with this investor friend of hers. And he makes some crazy offer. And the moral of the story is we had offered this guy one offer. And at the end of the day, her harebrained scheme ended up netting her less money a year and a half later than she could have just gotten by taking our offer up front. Yeah. She went through the whole thing.
Some of these people, they're nutsos, but I mean, that's the kind of people that usually call. There's always a weird situation, or they're just a little off, or they're just not the average person. What is it, 2 or 3% of the population they're looking to sell are for investors, right? It's about 2 or 3% of the selling population that fit for the needs and things we can provide to those sellers. But yeah, they fight and they come to us we're like, look, this is what we can do here. You just watch them fight in court, and things go through court for like 5 years. Someone had been in court for like 5 years. I'm like, the amount of money you guys must have spent, and now you're like finally looking to agree and sell, and you're like, it's crazy. But yeah, that's me and you both, I guarantee, have seen some really crazy, weird stuff.
For sure. So tell me about California, right now. I mean, you're in Southern California, San Diego area. What is that market like right now? Because interest rates are obviously high, but they've normalized out. People gotten used to it. What happened in your market in the last couple of years, and what does it look like now, and how'd that change your business?
Yeah, just a little more conservative. I really started just comping things out where it's more of what's for sale, and what's pending sale, and how long to take the pending sale, because everything was about leveled off. So then we went with that approach rather than in 2021 or whatever you're looking at. What's the most recent sale? And I'm going to go above that. But now it's like what's pending and what else is maybe closed, and I'm going to be right at that level in a sense. And we went with that. I got a little more conservative. And then this last winter, it was kind of brutal with some of the stuff we were trying to sell, and it took a long time. But the inventory has stayed pretty low. We're entry-level single-family residences, so I mean, there's always a market there for that. Sure. But coming into the beginning of this year, we have some condos that are pretty affordable. We had one in San Diego, Mira Mesa area. We have one in Anaheim right now, and we got like $50,000 over asking. I have like 5 offers in a day on the Mira Mesa condo, and easy comp, and it's like, we're like, what is going on here now? So, and rates are up, they're pushing right around where they were before as well, where things kind of shut off. Things got really quiet. It took a little longer to sell, but now it just seems like it's kind of becoming a little more norm, and people just want to get into affordable houses. And these are condos too. And then same with this Anaheim property. I thought we were going to list for 6. 2 properties went up for 6 before we finished our rehab. One sold for $650, the other $632. Mm-hmm. And then we're going to selling our like $647 now, and we got $47K. But they listed theirs for 6, just like I thought. And it's just like, okay, and sold it in 2 days, and it was top. So yeah, I mean it's still good. And we got more houses coming up. At what I'm seeing, things are selling for more. I mean, the prices are going up on at least entry-level affordability ones. Yeah. It took a little longer to sell one in Dana Point for about $1.3 million. Mm-hmm. could have done the rehab a little better, but we wound up selling for less than what it appraised for. And we had a lot of showings, different buyer pool. We learned a lot with that. Just we needed to put nicer finishings and stuff in there. So people were just, they look at their mortgage and they look at what you've done. They're like, that's not matching up. So you got to do a good rehab. That's for sure. There's no more wholesale stuff to have regular buyers and you're just got to cut way down. People want to get it all financed, all nice and redone, or at least from what I've seen.
That's a good point. And we've noticed that too. I mean, even here in Georgia where I live, on the rehabs I do around here, we have to kind of put something out a little bit nicer, or we got to price it appropriately, because buyers, they're looking at their payment and they're like, yeah, if I'm going to pay this much, I want to make sure. And it's crazy because there's still low inventory. They don't have a lot to choose from, but what there is to choose from, they're like, yeah, I'm not going to buy that one, and I'm going to buy this one over here. They're being ultra selective. It's just a strange phenomenon, right?
Yeah.
Given the inventory so low.
Yeah, and I haven't, ever since rates went up, I have yet to have a buyer where it's contingent upon sale of their property. Not I don't see that. That's, no one's giving up that rate, so you just know people aren't trading anything up right now. So it's all non-contingent upon sale of their property. Nobody. It's just first-time buyers a lot of the time, and or they're getting money from somewhere else, or they've been renting and saving a lot, or whatever the case may be. But yeah, never see that anymore either. Which is a good thing, is what's keeping this afloat for a lot of us, I believe, is just a low inventory at this time. That's the math says that we should be losing in a sense, or very close to losing, at least in California. Every market's different. But the affordability, I think, is around 16 or 17%, which is like the lowest it's ever been before you start having real price damage. And we had a little bit when it started, but it's stayed pretty, it's pretty resilient. And it hasn't really taken a giant hit. Some pocket areas have gotten hit pretty good. I know I've talked to a couple other investors, but we just target cookie cutter homes in established cities that are just, the most likely to sell, FHA eligible, stuff like, we just, what's going to work the best of ensuring a resale, even if things do go bad. Like, that's the last ones that are going to be the hardest to sell in a sense.
Yeah, I've noticed, obviously, since the market shifted in fall of 22, obviously we saw a dip here, but we've kind of since recovered from that dip. We're kind of back to where we were in fall of 22 in terms of median price and all that stuff. But I noticed from that standpoint that there was just, it was a different ball game from that standpoint. So I'm with you there. So. Well, cool, man. Well, hey, Mike, I appreciate you coming on today. And if anybody wants to connect with you, I mean, you guys are in the San Diego area, you and your partner, John. And if anybody wants to connect to you, bring you some deals or whatever, or just chat with you, how can everybody get in touch with you?
You know what? You can actually call my personal cell. Phone number is 858-361-0452, or you can email me at medic, medic79@yahoo.com. You can look us up online too at www.starsstripesrec.com, and that's our website as well.
Awesome. Cool, man. Well, hey, Mike, I really appreciate you coming on. It's always good to chat with you, brother. I mean, we chatted a good bit back in Phoenix a few months ago. Looking forward to connecting with you again at the next Fuel. And I appreciate you coming on today. Thanks so much for bringing a lot of value.
Yeah, buddy. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right. See you.